Welcome to Two Bees in a Pod. I am Bilola.
And I am B. Leonga, and this is a podcast about immigrant experiences in the U.S., sharing our perspectives on various topics,
Including straddling cultures, fitting in, staying connected, learning and unlearning the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Welcome to this week's episode. This is the fourth episode in our series of grief that we're doing, and our guest today is Josiane, and she has graciously agreed to join us to talk about a topic that we all agree, really needs to be addressed, not just in our community, but, globally in all communities. But before we get into that, we'll have our icebreaker as usual, and that might give you a hint of what is to come. So the icebreaker question today is, what is the most ridiculous myth or misconception that you have heard about women's reproductive health or pregnancy? So it could be something that you heard or something that you yourself believed as a younger woman. But what is the most ridiculous thing that you've heard?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's ridiculous. It was just really really. But in essence, I always knew a pregnancy is 9 months. But then you get pregnant, it's 40 weeks because they count the 4 weeks where you're still fertilizing the egg or whatnot. So I was always it's 36 weeks, but it's technically 40 weeks. So I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because everything else made sense. Okay, women's bodies, I'm a woman, I get some things. Yeah, it's not as fun as I hoped it would be, but yeah.
What about you, Bilala? Yes.
Morning sickness. I literally thought there was a magic clock somewhere at noon for it to stop. I didn't know that it was supposed to last all day. Or I thought it would happen just maybe when you wake up in the morning, when you just get out of bed, there's an hour or two. I didn't know that thing lasted all day.
I'm the worst person to speak because I was literally in the hospital for my morning sickness, getting fed through a tube, everything. I'm a horror pregnancy story walking. So, girl, it's whenever it wants to. Whenever that baby feels like it wants to annoy you.
Yeah, because I was throwing up from week 3 to the very end. It was just I went through a list, I would eat something and I would just throw up and say, okay, I'm not eating that. So by the end, I don't even remember what I was eating because the list was so long. I remember the very first thing I ate that triggered it was grapefruits. So that was done. Then this one day I was being really langa at work. I went and had nachos because first trimester was hell. I survived off of crackers and ginger ale. And then second trimester, I was I can eat a little bit more langa. I had nachos at the cafeteria at work. I ate it knowing you should not be eating this. I got to my floor, went to the bathroom, threw it up, I went to my desk. So I always say my lunch never made it back to my desk with me.
So is there anything that you just completely got turned off from because of your pregnancy, because of the morning sickness? You just didn't eat it again after that?
This was not even morning sickness. So one of the things I managed for a while was salada. And for a very long time that was the only thing I could eat. I have not eaten salada in 10 years.
Okay. So the most ridiculous thing that I have heard came out of the mouth of a U.S. representative he's no longer the representative, thank goodness, U.S. representative from Missouri, Todd Akin, who said that a woman's body can block a pregnancy if the rape is, quote, legitimate. So he was basically making the argument that no, if a woman is pregnant, then it was not an actual sexual assault because her body should be able to reject the pregnancy if she was actually assaulted. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to remind everybody why it's important to vote, because these are the people that are running this country. This is the kind of things that they're saying. So yeah, that to this day, I don't think I've heard a more stupid and just... I mean, if somebody said it on the street next to me, I would be astounded. But this is a U.S. representative, so please, people should go and vote. And he's gone now, but I bet you there are other people still sitting in that house who believe the same thing. So, yeah. Okay, so like I said, Josiane is here to join us to talk about a different kind of grief than we've covered in the last 3 episodes. And as you can guess from the icebreaker, we're going to be talking about grief related to pregnancy loss, and then we're also just going to be talking about difficult experiences with pregnancy and childbirth, and I haven't been doing a good job of giving trigger warnings or content warnings. So this is your content warning. We're going to be discussing pregnancy loss for the listeners and the viewers. If you're just not in a space to listen, I suggest that you either skip this episode or, save it for another day when you're a bit, in a better position to process what we're talking about. All right. So Josiane, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said at the top of the episode, this is a really important subject that unfortunately we don't talk about enough. So can you just tell us why it was important for you to come and talk about your experience on a public platform?
I think first and foremost, it was because when you actually messaged me, I think you got my answer. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. I'm shy. But at the same time, I remember when I was in that position and all I was seeing was, I don't want to say like Black women were less vocal, but I was seeing more so like Caucasian women, Indian women. I didn't really see any Black women. Not saying that our loss or our pain is different from another race. I just didn't see that representation, for one. And two, the stories I was seeing was stories of like successful, like maybe the kid or the baby was going through a hard time and they made it, but there weren't enough stories about, the loss, and like not just the loss, but the loss of yourself as well. So I remember wishing I could see more of that so I could say, okay, you've gone through it as well. You know what I'm going through. I can relate to you. But seeing all those successful stories when you're in that storm, it's like, okay, you guys have gone through it. You're happy. What about us that we're still going through it? We're still suffering. We don't know the future. We're confused. So I wanted to be the change I wanted to see in the world, if that makes sense. So that's why.
And thank you for raising your hand to come in and talk about that. And you're right, it's important, right? Because we know that in the US especially, and I'm sure it's true worldwide, Black women's experiences with pregnancy are not the same as, other racial groups. So it's important, even if it was the same, it's still important to see, women who look like you from your similar background talking about their own experiences, and then it's that much more important because we know that Black women, have kind of disparate negative outcomes related to pregnancy and childbirth. So, it's up to you, like how much detail or how little detail you want to go into about your experience. But can you just tell us, as much as you want about your experience, and following that, what and who were some of the support systems that, kind of helped you through that grieving process?
To make it as short but as detailed as possible, because my story is kind of in three parts. I was fortunate enough to have 3 pregnancies. The first one was an ectopic pregnancy, which means that the baby was growing not in my uterus, but in my fallopian tube. So with that, I want to say the only benefit I got from that is that I didn't get to know that baby. I didn't get to see that baby, but I lost the fallopian tube. So at that point, I'm already worried about the fact that, okay, maybe my uterus isn't the best. Maybe I won't have kids in the future. I'm at 50% right now with just 1 fallopian tube. And then as God would have it, the very same time the next year, July 2020, I got pregnant with my second baby. And when I tell you from the beginning, like from as soon as I started feeling those pregnancy symptoms, it was just hell on wheels. When I tell you I was throwing up, like from the first, I want to say the day I missed my period, the day I took a test. I was pregnant. I was throwing up everything. Smalls I loved, puff, beans, rice, everything. Body lotion was just everything. And we lived in our apartment for at least, I want to say 8 months by that time. But I walked out of the hallway one day, out of the door, and the smell was just like, is a dog dying? Like, it was the worst smell ever. From that day on, I was throwing up nonstop. I was probably weighing about, I want to say 160 before my pregnancy. During my pregnancy, I went down to 108. I was in the hospital from 1 month pregnant. They were feeding me through a tube straight to my stomach. That put me on a stomach pump, which basically it injects a medicine that helps nausea in your stomach, and it like travels faster into your bloodstream. That wasn't working. They put like a tube down my nose into my stomach so I wouldn't have to taste the food. That wasn't working. So what they ended up doing was telling me that I'd have to get on steroids because at this point, I wasn't healthy, but my baby was prospering, but I wasn't sustaining the pregnancy as far as like my vitals. So they told me all the risk about with the steroids, cleft palate, autism, a whole bunch of risks that I was like, okay, you know what? At this point, I just want to have my baby. Whatever happens, as long as God got me, the baby's going to be okay. Cool. So I remember my 20th week scan, which is where they look at the baby's organs. They check the baby's foot in the back of their neck, kind of like making sure the baby's developing normally. They noticed everything was okay, but they weren't sure if there was like something blocking like my cervix, which is the opening where, the baby comes from. And I'm only explaining that in case there are male viewers watching the show. So at my 22-week scan, I remember having a lot of pain. I was constantly in pain. Like I couldn't squat without having pain. I couldn't cough without having pain. In my head, I don't know, maybe it's normal. I don't want to bother my GP. I just want to like let her know everything's okay so they won't put me back in the hospital. Because mind you, I've been in the hospital for about, I'm 5 months pregnant at this time. About 3 months of my pregnancy was in the hospital. So at this point, I'm doing everything to avoid the hospital, lying to myself. So I remember at one point, my husband was like, okay, no, let's go. Let's just see what's going on. It's a 10-minute drive. Let's just go and see. I'm like, all right, but if they tell me to go to the hospital, I'm going to negate everything I just said. He's like, okay, let's just go. So we go there and she doesn't even check like vaginally or anything. She just asks me, what are my pains? What's going on? I explain to her every time I squat, I'm in pain. I can't cough without being in pain. I can't take the shower without being in pain. I'm not throwing up anymore, but I'm just in constant like agonizing pain when I like exert my stomach muscles kind of. So she tells me, oh, it's normal. The baby's growing. She's very big for her age. As long as you're not bleeding, as long as, you're not secreting more mucus than usual, which I tell her I am. But she's like, okay, the baby's eating well. It's normal. Mucus is normal. So we go back. I remember it was Thanksgiving weekend. We were supposed to go do like our baby shower. We're going to go get the venue on the Monday after Thanksgiving. And I'll never forget my sister, who was a nurse at the time. Well, she's still a nurse. She was spending the weekend with us. And I'll always be grateful to her because she literally saved not only my life, but my baby's life. So that night we were supposed to go out, like just take brunch or something, not brunch, like a dinner or something. But I was like, I can't feel it. Like, I'm not feeling it. Let's just stay home. She's like, all right, let's stay home. I am on all fours through the night, rocking back and forth. And in hindsight, it's like, I was kind of in labor and I didn't know it, but I was doing all the labor things. So I'm rocking back and forth. She's like rubbing my back. My husband's rubbing my feet. They're like, what's going on? Like, let's just keep rubbing her. Or do you feel any pressure in your stomach? Because I'm on all fours, I can't really feel pressure in my cervix. It's more so on my stomach. So they're like, okay, we'll go to the hospital in the morning. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Through tears, I'm fine. He's like, no, we're going to go to the hospital in the morning. If anything, I'm going to keep watching you overnight. We're going to watch you. If we feel like you need to go, we're going to go. So at this point now, I'm literally in the bed, biting into my pillow so they don't hear me because they're literally sleeping on either side of me. I'm biting into the pillow like I'm in so much pain. I'm like, God, I don't want to go back to the hospital. I don't want to be hospitalized. That morning, I slept for maybe like 30 minutes. I woke up in the worst pain that Monday morning, the 29th of November. I couldn't walk. I was like, I have to pee, but I didn't want to pee in the bed. So I like get my sister to help me go pee. And it's like a whole bunch of stuff is just flowing down my legs. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's the pee. I get to the bathtub or to the toilet or whatever, and I wipe. And it's like, when I tell you, it's like TMI, but it was a whole bunch of mucus. I lost my mucus plug, which in essence is what keeps the baby like clogged up in your cervix and your uterus. So at this point, my sister's like, Josie, I'm taking you to the hospital right now. I'm not discussing with you. I'm not even having a conversation. We're going right now. So because she had to drive like a good 1 hour to get to work and she's a nurse, my husband was like, no, he's going to call out from work because he's military. He's going to call out. He doesn't care what they say. We're just going to go to the hospital. By the time we get to the hospital, I'm not even like conscious anymore. I'm just like in pain to the point where I can't even speak. So we get to the hospital. As soon as they see us, they ask us if we're pregnant. I say yes, I'm in tears or whatever. They will straight to there's like a room where they look at you to make sure you're okay, like check on you, ask you questions. So I'll never forget that woman put her hand up like my vagina and like she could feel the baby's head. And I kid you not, when she told me I could feel her head, I blacked out. I could not even comprehend. I was like, no, I just completely, like, I remember just babbling to myself, this isn't real, and I blacked out. Next thing I know, I come to, we're like in basically the delivery room. It was like, I don't know if it was a delivery room per se, it was like the closest room I think available, the closest OR available. And they're like, you're having this baby right now. We need you to be awake. We had to like, I think they gave me something to wake me up. Like, we need you to be awake. You're having this baby right now. And I'm like, nope, I'm trying to close my eyes. It sounds so stupid in hindsight. I'm trying to close my eyes and go back to sleep. I'm like, this isn't happening. This isn't real. This is a dream. And like, baby, you have to push. And as God would have it, literally, as soon as they told me I have to push, that baby flew out. I did like a grunt. And she, again, because it's so early in the pregnancy, it's not the big baby. It's just more so like they had to pop my water because, again, the baby's still in that water, which God really was working for me. And as soon as they popped the water, she just flew out. Like, when I say literally flew out, she flew out. And it's like they had to catch her because it's like on a downward tray that's like coming down. So they had to catch her because, like, again, she's still connected to me, but she's like sliding crazily off the thing. So they catch her, and I remember them pulling her up and like, oh, she's breathing. She just took her first breath. Do you want to look at her? I'm like, nope, I don't want to see her. Because in my mind, I'm like, this baby's going to die. If I see her, it's going to be more grief. I don't want to look at her, nothing. I'm like, no, I don't want to see her, no. My husband at this point, he's turning my head like, just look at her, just look. I'm like, no, all I see is like a whole head of hair. She's like this tiny little thing, and like her toes are just like out there. Her hands are out there. And I'm like, I don't want to look at that anymore. And I turned my face away. So I remember like all the nurses in the room, they gave it was like a sound of like sadness. I can't even to this day describe the sound. It was just like I don't know how to explain it, but I could feel like in my head, I thought they were disappointed in me. That's how I registered it as. But later on, when I spoke to them, they kind of explained that no, they understood and they felt bad. So long story short, my daughter's a warrior. I'm sorry. There is no other way to put it. She's a miracle. She's a warrior because Within 5 days of me having given birth to her, again, I didn't see her until 3 days later because I was not trying to look at her. I was like, if she makes it through the second night, I'll go see her. But before that, nope. And what actually ended up happening is that my husband was like, you're going down there right now. I'm going to wheel you down there. We get to that door. I'm going to push you in there. You're going to look at that baby. You're going to love her for, even if it's for just 1 minute, you're going to love her. You're going to look at her, let her know she's loved, and give her a reason to fight. In my head, I'm like, you're wasting the time. And again, I'm crying through this. You're wasting your time. I'm going to go see her. Then I promise you she's going to die the next minute. Like, I'm just walking bad luck. Like, I just was just berating myself, depressed already, not even seeing the future at this point. And then I remember when I went to go see her, they had to hold me up because at this point my feet are buckling. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I couldn't keep you in me. This is the second baby I'm about to lose. Like, what is wrong with me? My husband and I, he's going to leave me because I can't have kids. Something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not meant to be a mom. And just all these thoughts running through your head. And then you see that little, she was 1 pound, 12 ounces. By the time I saw her, she was 1 pound, 8. And 1 pound, 8 is like, she's literally like, if she crawls up in a ball, she's this small. Literally this small. Her whole tibia, which is like her foot bone, was as big as my pinky. Just to give you an idea of how small she was. And I remember just looking at her like, damn, I failed you. That's the only thing I kept thinking to myself. I failed you. I failed you. I failed you. I could have done a better job. Maybe I could have sat down. Maybe I could have seen a doctor sooner. Like, that's all I'm thinking is the fact that I failed her. She's going to die. I deserve it. Whatever. So the third night, because they wanted me to see her first before talking to me, and they tell me there's a lot of things that could be wrong with this baby. She could be mentally challenged. She could have cerebral palsy. She could never walk again. She could be on like tubes for the rest of her life. A whole bunch of things. And I'm just like blacking out at this point. I'm like, I don't want to listen to it. This is news I don't want to hear. I don't even want her to live if she's going to be that way. And I remember praying to God, and it sounds so shallow of me, but I want to be as honest as possible. I remember telling God that if she ends up being mentally challenged, or if she ends up being like, you know, disabled, please don't let her live. Because I know me, I'm not going to be able to see her every day and love her as I should. But God, please, I'm begging you, if she's not going to be more or less okay, don't let her live a life that's not fulfilling. And I remember telling my husband this, and I'm like, is it bad that I'm thinking that way? And he's like, it's not bad, but it's honest. But I want you to know that you have to love your daughter no matter what she has. And I'm telling him, like, it's not that I wouldn't love her. I just wouldn't be happy for her because I know the life I'm living. I know the life I've seen people live. And sadly, I don't know a lot of disabled people. I don't know. I just see them like maybe on like, you know, Donate or just walking past me on the street, but never, I don't have any relationship with a disabled person to know that, you know what? You're still alive. You're still living. You're still fulfilled in your own way. It's still your life. So he kind of told me about that. Like, literally, he had a friend in the army who was disabled, and he goes on motorcycles, like he does crazy stuff, and he's disabled. So I don't want to say change my perspective because I was still in the sense of, you know what? I still don't want that for my daughter. And I'm sorry. And I know it still sounds bad, but to this day, I would prefer to have a baby that's happy and healthy. I would still love it, but just knowing that you're not getting that full life experience would have been damaging to me. And I remember telling God, like, this is wrong. If I'm selfish to think this way, give me that baby that has all the issues. Let me learn and grow from it. But please, if you see me and you know the kind of person I am, let my baby be okay, please. So this is like maybe a week after I give birth to her, which is about 5.5, almost 6 months gestation. And they tell me, they call us in the morning because they just say they let me go like 2 days later or 3 days later. And they call us and they let us know that they have to go into surgery because her intestines are perforated, which means there's a hole in her intestine, which means something might be leaking into her abdomen. Her abdomen was really swollen. They thought it was just like normal, whatever. At this point, like, I remember that morning, we didn't say a word to each other. We got dressed in silence. We got in the elevator in silence. We went to the NICU in silence. We literally prayed. We didn't say a word to each other until she came out of surgery 5 hours later. And the doctor tells me it was the easiest surgery ever. She had like a little clump of fat that was clogging the perforation. Mind you, again, God is the best because this is a 1 pound, 8 ounce baby. Where is she getting enough fat to clog that perforated bowel in her stomach so that nothing comes into her actual abdominal cavity? So in essence, that was the only surgery she had other than the one to close her back up. I don't know what to say because when you look at her today, you would never guess everything she went through. You would never guess what I went through with her just because she is so full of joy and she's just everything I wanted God to give me in a daughter, to be honest. And I thank God every day that he was able to see past my selfishness. He was able to see past my self-loathing to let me see this baby to this age. Because honestly, she showed me how strong I was, but she showed me how strong I had to be to help other people. Because again, you're in the NICU with other moms. Like, you're not the only one going through it. There are like maybe 4 or 5 babies that died throughout our NICU stay. And those moms, they are wailing, they are screaming in pain. Like, all you can do is hear it and just feel for them. But at the same time, every new mom that walks in, you kind of relate to them more because once like your kid dies in the NICU, like you don't get to go back in because you're going to be crying. When they come and give you your baby, you spend the time with them. They take the baby to, I guess, wherever they take them to. But every new mom that came in, I remember like making sure like every mom, I sat down with them. I talked about their babies, only the positive things. And I told them any negative thing, it's up to you. But just being that open with them and like kind of setting the trajectory that whenever new moms come in to welcome them and create like a mom group or anything. Like I had moms I would reach out to at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 1 a.m., just bouncing off ideas off of each other, articles we'd read, and just knowing that someone else was listening to you and knew exactly what you were going through. For me at the time, it was enough, but I wish that before I got that, that courage to make those bonds, I had seen that like on social media because I would read scholarly articles about it. I would search hashtags of 23 weekers, 24 weekers, and I just wouldn't see anything that appealed to me. But at the same time, which is kind of hypocritical, is that I wasn't making posts about it either. So I understood that people grieve differently. People are more vocal about their grief. People are more open about their situation. Like there are moms who would chronicle like from day one to the day they took their baby out. And I'm like, by the time I'm done crying at 10 a.m., I got to pump again because you have to pump and bring the baby breast milk without your baby. So I got to pump, I got to clean. I still had to work for some time. So it's like, I don't even see where you guys get the time in the day to even make these posts. But at the end of the day, when you feel like you have to be an advocate for something, you're going to make the time, which is why I respected a lot of those women a lot. But in essence, long story short, it was hard. And I think what made it harder was that one, I was very scared and ashamed. And two, I didn't realize that other women are going through what I'm going through. But when I was in that NICU and I saw those women and I was able to feel their pain through like literally your babies are next to each other. So if a mom is crying next to you, you're hearing it and your baby's hearing it and everyone's hearing it. So going through that experience really made me be more, one, cognizant of the fact that women are the strongest bodies in this world that God could have made. Like women are really, we're the best. We're the best in the way we handle pain, and the way we handle grief, and the way we show up, even if we don't want to. And the friends that we have that, in as much as they're not going through what we're going through, they're there for you. Like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but in essence, like that whole pregnancy really shook me, but it made me who I am today, if that makes sense. That was a lot. Sorry.
No, that's an incredible story. It's an incredible experience. And you said something that kind of stuck with me is that you had this fear, right? That the baby would not survive because, well, in part because of that first pregnancy, right? And I think that's something that it makes a lot of sense, right? For you to have that fear. So just to go back to that first ectopic pregnancy, like at what point in the pregnancy did you realize, that it was an ectopic pregnancy? What were how far along, like, did you bring it to the attention of your medical team? Did they find out like on an ultrasound? Can you just kind of tell us about that experience a little bit?
Yeah, this is going to touch on the fact that Black women are not respected at all in hospitals in general. So I remember, again, I'm someone whose periods are always 28 days, no matter what, it's 28 days. So I remember the 28th day I didn't see my period. I was spotting throughout my period, again, which is very abnormal for me. I went to go see like the closest GP that was available. And she's like, well, are you sexually active? Yeah, so maybe have you been doing a lot more than lately? And I'm like, I mean, I don't understand where that's coming from. She's like, well, maybe that's why. Well, just take a pregnancy test in 2 days. And if it's still positive, you can come back or you can go to the ER. So I'm like, but I'm here now and I'm kind of worried about it because, again, I explained to her, I have regular periods. I never spot throughout my period. She's like, no, you're fine. Mind you, I'm in New York. I'm from Charlotte and I had moved to New York like with my spouse. So this isn't someone who knew my history. So I remember the next day or whatever, I'm now feeling like a weird pain, but it's not pain enough to scream or cry about. I end up going to the ER. They look at me. They don't see the baby in the uterus. But again, it's so early. It's like 4 weeks at this point. They're like, oh, give it another week. We might see something. We'll check your HCG levels, which is like the hormone in your bloodstream that detects a pregnancy. If it's not going up as it should, then we'll know it's not where it's supposed to be. So in essence, 2 days later, I come back. They do the HCG test. It's going down instead of going up, which means the pregnancy isn't right. So at this point, they let me know, oh, we can either give you a pill, which will kind of like make you abort the baby, or we can wait and see what happens. And I'm like, okay, no, a shot. And I'm like, I'd rather take the shot because at this point, I'm scared. This is weird for me. I don't want anything happen to me or the baby. They're like, no, give it some more time or whatever. This is the day before. The next day we're at Target, and I kid you not, I literally was getting back to the car and I lifted my leg up to because my husband had a bigger car, it was a tall car. So I had to lift my leg up to get in. And I remember just lifting my leg up and waking up in the hospital. And what ended up happening is that the baby was growing in my fallopian tube and it had ruptured. So I was bleeding internally. And I remember saying, like, I kept feeling like I had to go to the bathroom, do number two, but it was like a lot of pressure in my butt, which is, again, just your nerve endings reacting to all that blood in places where it's not supposed to be. So they end up telling me, like, you have to go into surgery immediately, just be calm, whatever. Because I came to in the hospital and they're like, okay, the baby's going in your fallopian tube. Your priority right now, we have to get you in there because you're bleeding internally. Like, imagine waking up and it's just all this information at you. And I'm just like, what? Count to 10 backwards. I'm out. I wake up. There's no more baby in me. I lost my fallopian tube. And I remember just thinking to myself, I went to see 3 medical professionals before this happened. And I let them know, and as much as you don't have my history, this is something that has been normal since I started getting my period. I never spot. That enough should be a red flag to say, okay, you know what? Go to the ER. And then when I do go to the ER, I tell you people that I would rather take that shot right now. And you're telling me no to wait and hold on. For what reason? My HCG is going down. Like, we have enough facts at this point to know that, you know what? This isn't working how it should. My HCG levels are going down. The period is irregular. I haven't seen my period to begin with. And there's HCG, if anything, which means there's a pregnancy somewhere. So I think I didn't grieve too much, not only because I didn't see that baby, because I was very upset and angry. Because 1, I didn't have to lose my fallopian tube. I didn't have to do that. That baby was growing somewhere they could have given me a shot and stopped its growth where it wasn't supposed to be growing. 2, I told you guys several times, like, this isn't right. This is not normal for me. And I'm not as knowledgeable as you guys are. You guys are doctors. You're nurses. You've seen many things like this happen before. I've never been through this. And for them to kind of shut me down like that, and to be fair, they weren't mean about it. They weren't like, oh, no, like, condescending. They were just very like, we know what we're saying. Take advice from us. And again, me, you're the doctor. I'm going to listen to you. And as much as everything in me is telling me, no, this isn't right. Like, they literally told me, go home, give it a couple more days. We'll come back and check. So one thing that experience taught me is that advocate for yourself. Even if you end up sounding stupid, you end up being the angry black woman, someone's going to listen to you. The more you raise your voice in that kind of setting, someone's going to come to you like, okay, you know what? This is a quiet place. We need you to calm down. What do you need? And 2, listen to yourself. Like, if your body is saying this is off, it's off. Even if it's not off, just go with the assumption that it's off and take care of you. And then be satisfied with the fact that, you know what, I was wrong, but I'm okay. Then I was right and I'm not okay. Hope that answers your question. I talk really fast. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And Bilala, we were talking about it before we got on the air, before you joined, about, just the stats, right, of Black maternal mortality in the US. And it's linked to what you're saying. It's like Black women are not being listened to. When you raise concerns, like, you're being dismissed. And to be honest, like you said, it's not always in a mean way, because it has happened to me before where I tell the doctor something and he's a really nice guy and he'll just be like, you're fine. It's nothing. Like, sir, you haven't examined me yet. I get it. Like, you're trying to reassure me, but, at the same time, you're being dismissive, right? So it's very important to advocate for yourselves. And we've seen it even with celebrities like Serena Williams. She almost died because people were not listening to her. So it's not even a matter of socioeconomic status. There's a real problem with the system. So yeah, that you made a good point, like, advocate for yourself, even if it means, like, making people uncomfortable. I have done that before. I mean, not with, like, reproductive health issues. Other things, I'm like, give me that test. That's why I have insurance. We're doing the biopsy. Let me, put my mind at ease. And the guest that we had, previously, he talked about how, his wife had a headache that she kind of, just, I don't want to use the word dismissed, but his message also was what you're saying. It's like, listen to your body. Don't ignore things that look or seem abnormal to you, and trust yourself. Okay. So you answered one of my questions, which, you said you were angry, right? Following that surgery, which led to them, taking off one of your fallopian tubes. Did they offer any kind of, like, counseling, psychological, assistance, somebody to talk to after what you've just experienced?
I think they were also really worried about a lawsuit because, again, everything was really documented. I remember, like, I really asked them, like, if I ask a question, put it in there. Because my sister's a nurse. And she's like, they'll give you one random ass piece of paper, double check. And if they say, oh, we talked about this and you guys didn't talk about it, tell them to take it off. So the only time they called me was to ask me, oh, did I have any questions? Now my questions about what? Oh, about our service, about anything about the like how everything happened. I'm like, questions about what? So I actually cursed one of them out. My husband actually took the phone because I was really like livid. Like, and this is like a good month later, but nothing. I remember I went to go see even like my GP afterwards and my OB, sorry. And she didn't offer any counseling, nothing. Like, again, mind you, I'm coming to tell you, like, I was crying that day, actually, because I was like, I think she was checking something. I was like, oh, you won't see a fallopian tube there. Duh, she's going to know that there's no fallopian tube there. But I was just telling her, like, oh, by the way, you won't see a fallopian. And I started crying. And she was like, oh, honey, don't cry. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Well, okay, so you'll come back in 2 weeks' time. And again, I'm
Bruh.
thinking you're going to try to, like, maybe relate or, like, and I think at this point I was really looking for that, like, that feeling of, like, okay, it's okay, like, someone to kind of mother me or something. And she was just like, it's okay, it's okay. You'll come back in 3 weeks and, we'll check everything and you're fine. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know how to put it, but it wasn't what I was hoping she would say, because, again, this is someone I had dealt with before. But it was a very, very negative experience in every way possible. Every way possible.
Yeah, that's really disappointing, especially since she was your regular OB.
I just think with doctors, with a lot of medical professions, it's like dating. You have to go through you have to go through a couple of them to find the one that is your fit. Because I recently got a new OB, and I was telling my friend, I'm like, I think I found the one where I don't I don't know. I had one and I had to let her go because I didn't like her front office staff,
What?
which is which is
Okay,
it's
okay.
which is also because like they're the ones you engage with making appointments, and if you're rude and I cannot talk to you, like I don't know if you're giving the doctor my messages, that
Mm-hmm.
matters to me. But I went to an OB where I was talking about, like Josiane said, her periods are regular. My periods play hanky panky with me. We're constantly playing hide and seek. And so, like, I have to track really obsessively to show the doctor. And I was showing this new OB, and we talked through it. And she was like drawing diagrams and handwritten notes that she gave to me at the end of the appointment. But I was just like, okay, I found my person, because it mattered to her that I understood what we were talking about and what some of her suggestions were for. But the OB that I had when I was pregnant, she was okay, but I have beef with the fact that, one, my blood pressure was elevated. Like, my blood pressure spiked during labor. And the nurse said it's because I was laughing too much with my friends, because I was on FaceTime laughing.
What the hell?
But it never went down. It did not go down for like 6 weeks. But they still sent me home 20, maybe like 24 hours later. I was discharged even with the elevated blood pressure. Thankfully, my cousin is an OBGYN, so at any point in time, anything my doctor said, Tosin was on standby to call, like, this is what they said, this is what. So we were running everything through her, but barely 24 hours at home. I felt like I was dying. I don't know how to explain it. Like, my chest just hurt, and I'd heard about Bell's palsy, where, like, it's like a stroke women tend to have after. So I'm just like, what? So I keep telling him, like, look at my face. Is it drooping on one side? But we had to go back to the hospital, and then now my doctor starts panicking. But in my mind, he's like, "Why did you send me home? The number was there when you sent me to the house with it. Why did you send me?" So I came back, and she's panicking, and she's like doing all this and sending me to do a cardio consult and everything. But why did it have to get to this point for you to do what you should do?
Mm-hmm. And you made a good point about those front office. Listen, let me put a disclaimer. My sister is a nurse, and she's very lovely, and this does not include her or your sister Josiane. But somebody said one time on TikTok, and I agree, that the girls who become nurses were the mean girls in high school, because I've had some horrible experiences with nurses. Like what you're saying, Bilal, the front office, like you call, they're very dismissive, call, oh, I've seen this result on my portal. Can you explain it to me? Oh, the doctor explains to you when you have the appointment with him. So why are you guys showing me something that I cannot understand? I'm gonna be here panicking for the next 2 weeks before I see the doctor. Like, a lot of them are extremely dismissive. Some are nice, but yeah, this message is for the nurses. Y'all are mean girls, and you need to do better.
I never got to go to the hospital in Cameroon as a patient, but the stories I've heard about
Girl.
nurses.
Let me tell my own story now. I was in high school. My dad was a doctor, so we hardly ever got admitted to the hospital unless it was something like really, really bad. Like, he would just treat us at home. So, like, I had the worst malaria. Like, it was bad. Like, so it's bad to a point where he would take me to the hospital, right? And I had been throwing up the whole time, not eating. And we go to the hospital, and they're like, okay, you need to give a stool sample. I guess that's how they were gonna like confirm that was malaria. I don't know why they had to do that. So the two nurses like they're taking me to the restroom, and I was so weak that like I blacked out for a second, and like my legs buckled under me. They said, "Hey, I beg, get up!"
My God, like, I'm struggling.
They're yelling at me. They're like, "Hey, I beg, we cannot carry you."
No, the things I've heard, especially maternity nurses.
Girl,
The things
I was
I've
about to
heard,
get
I've
into
heard,
that. Mm-mm.
the
Yes.
things I've heard. I think that maybe we should examine the relationship between our superstitious, attitudes towards pregnancy and the nurses in the maternity room, because I think they're equally yoked. Certain things like you're in labor and you're like in pain, and nurses like, that shut up, like shut up. That is where you crying when you were taking in the pregnancy.
I've heard that. Are
you serious? Are you serious? Or like if you're going, the stories I've heard makes me think that not we don't have enough nurses who are empathetic or compassionate to the people that come through the hospital.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, it's a job at the end of the day, right? You're seeing patient after patient. I'm sure a lot of patients are not nice to you, but that's a profession that you signed up for. Like, you gotta be a little bit nicer.
Took an oath, and you took an oath, because I'm pretty sure this is not what Florence Nightingale had in mind when she was creating.
I'm telling you. And to me, it's the maternity ones, especially ones who have been through that position where you've had a child. Like, I had the unfortunate circumstance to watch my cousin give birth in Cameroon. When I tell you they were so mean, like after she told me she was in a rush to push the baby out so she could leave, like that was her motivation. Like they were rude. When I say rude, like she would come like, "Oh, she could, why are you screaming? Close your mouth. Why are you screaming? Use that need to push the baby out." And it's like, bro, like, and Anga, you know me by now. Like I was ready to fight. Like I was like, chill the fuck out. Like you guys need to relax. And she's just like looking at me, squeezing me. I'm like, kick him. You can just kick him real quick and act like it's the baby. Just kick real quick. Like they're so mean, and it's like, why? Because you guys don't have HR, like, or maybe because they don't have HR, they're what American nurses are with HR. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe because they don't have HR, they can be unfiltered. And then because we have HR here, they're kind of like, all right, let me not cuss this woman out. Let me not cuss her out. Let me just be really dismissive. But
that's
crazy. It could also be like their compensation or like their salary is not great. But I'm just saying, like, you took an oath, and this is not what Florence Nightingale had in mind. Like, why are you shouting? Why are you like they're so? It's not. They're just so mean, and they've developed a reputation. Like nurses in Cameroon, we're all saying the same thing, right? They are mean. When I was getting my epidural, right? They sent in an anesthesiology student. Let's not even get into that. And this girl is like putting it, and they kept saying it shouldn't hurt. And every time I felt like there's like a pain. I was like, oh, this girl's about to paralyze me. It's over. I can't feel my legs. And so after she did it, then she's like, no, I moved. And my nurse literally like walked up to me and like where she's like, hold me, and us in this embrace, like, and then finally Tosin had enough and was like, step aside, don't do it again, like go and bring somebody. And it's very clear she did not know what she was doing, because the experienced professional came in there, tapped it, and he was in and out of the room 5 minutes later and billed $8,000, but neither here nor there.
Oh, okay. I love the American.
He told you were the one who moved? He told you were the one who moved?
The student or trainee or new grad said I was moving. But the experienced anesthesiologist came into the room. He was in and out of there in less than 10 minutes. Like 1, 2, I held the nurse and I did not feel anything, so I know the other girl was struggling with something.
And that's dangerous, because again, that's your spine. That's really like your spinal cord. Like people are crazy. Like, and why are you bringing an undergraduate to work on me? Am I a guinea pig? Like, what's going on here?
They should go and train somewhere else.
Like, I'm train on a pregnant woman. That's ridiculous. Oh, thank God you're okay.
Right. So, other than your sister and your spouse, like, who are some people that were part of your support system, while you had, this premature birth and you were kind of worried about the health of your daughter, and I'm sure your own health and well-being too?
I'm going to say first and foremost, my friends. Shout out to Inanga's sister, Yoti. Love you, baby. Again, this girl's a nurse. She was calling me when I tell you, and she lives in London. I'm in America. Every 1 hour, like, she was checking on me, like, nonstop. And it's like, it's normal to feel the love when someone's next to you, but to feel that love even 10 times over from such a distance, like I will never, and I keep telling all my friends to this day, I will never be able to pay you guys back, and I hope I won't ever have to be in this situation you guys were in to have to comfort you because you're seeing your child suffer. But my friends, my best friends, Dora, Yoti, and Paula, they were like my rocks. Like there were days where I wouldn't get up out of bed and they would just call and call and call. Like even when I wouldn't pick, they would call and call and call. And unfortunately for me, my parents were all like back home. They couldn't come over because one, Amazon, whatever those things were happening. COVID 2 was going on at the time. But my aunt, who was actually very, very ill, she flew in from Charlotte to come and stay with me, cooked for us, made sure we had food. Like, she was really just the sweetest. And I wasn't that close to her before. Like, we had a lot of issues in our past, but just with that situation, it made up for any issues we had in our past before because she literally was, she put her health at risk. She put her family's health at risk because, again, this is like peak COVID season. So, really, it was my aunt, my cousins, and my best friends. Like I would not be where I am today without them. Like they really made sure I was, if anything, pumping. Because I wouldn't even want to pump at sometimes. Like tired of crying and like you should pump and have your baby next to you. But imagine pumping and it's like pumping to put in a freezer and transport to the hospital and not even able to feed your baby because again, COVID. You have to watch them feed her through a window. You can't do chest to chest. So being able to vent with them and knowing that, you know what, they feel this pain as much as I do. Like they were crying on the phone with me at some point. Like they confessed to me later they would hang up and like, and if they're telling me, you're fine, you got this, they would be bawling their eyes out. So really having a good set of friends, shout out to Saker, because that's one thing Saker gave me is a good set of friends. Knowing that they love you and they care for you and just feeling that love, even through the phone, I'm blessed. I'm really blessed. Shout out to Mama you too for raising y'all. Y'all are blessed.
I have a follow-up. I have a follow-up question to that. What is something like an unexpected act of kindness that like just completely floored you in that time? Like maybe from somebody you least expected or from like a random stranger, but somebody was outside of your primary support system. Like what's one thing?
I hate that. I'm going to sound really prideful, but we used to live in a very, I want to say, Ajabal kind of apartment setting. And I remember when I would go down, like when I would rush to the hospital to drop off milk or whatever, there was a concierge woman and she got to know me because I would always be coming down at the craziest hours, like 3 a.m. I'm going to the hospital. And she was like, oh, where are you? Like one time she asked me, where are you going? And she was like, I was going to ask you because you were pregnant. I didn't want to ask and like intrude. So I told her, no, like I'm going to see the baby. Like we got to talk and know each other a little bit. And she had asked me like, oh, would it be okay if she sent, cleaners up to go clean like the house, like whenever I'm out or something. And I was like, yeah, like you guys have the key anytime this week is fine. So I'm thinking in my head, she just asked me to be nice, whatever. She didn't have to do it. But when I tell you, she didn't even get their cleaners in their building. She hired cleaners to come in. When I tell you, they cleaned the hell out of our house. Like they cleaned it was spotless. She even did laundry. And I'm like, you didn't have to do any of this. Again, mind you, I only knew her for about maybe 3 weeks before she even like asked me that question. Like she had come up to the apartment before. She would like help me like wash bottles and stuff. But just having her know that, you know what, just a little bit I can do. I have, you're okay to go into your house. I can fold your laundry. I know where things are. Just her going out of her way to do that. And she had 2 kids, by the way. Her going out of her way to do that. And like, again, not even using our leasing office, getting like private cleaners that were really going to do like a good job and take their time. It was really sweet. Like I really didn't expect it. Really didn't expect it.
That's really sweet. All right. So given the experience, right, of your first daughter's childbirth, and thank goodness, like she's, a bouncy baby girl now. So you have a second daughter. Obviously, it's reasonable that you had fears, right, with her pregnancy. Did you have similar issues with that pregnancy as well?
Yeah, it's crazy because she also, like my service started opening as well right at 20 weeks. And I remember the doctor I was talking to was like, you know what, let's wait a little bit. You can dilate like 2 centimeters is the cutoff. You're just at 1 centimeter at this point. Just give it some time. And I'm like, I just told you I had a 23-week-old baby. Do you understand the trauma that has? So I remember them trying to tell me, no, wait a little bit, this and that. I told them, no, I need to get a cerclage today. I'm not leaving here without a cerclage. You guys need to figure out how you're going to get it done. I'm not leaving. So what they ended up doing was that they had to do it 2 days later. Because again, it's not because I say so they're going to do it. They have to like free up the space, get the time, the availability. And it was Halloween. And this is like a whole bunch of grief in one because my grandma was very, very sick. Like when I tell you we knew she was going to die, I was like holding my emotions in because again, I don't want to start crying and it affect the pregnancy, all that. And I remember speaking to her and she's like, you just be strong. I'm going to hold out till you have your baby. I'm going to be here. Just name that baby after me. I'm going to be here. Just go ahead and get this done. get the cerclage and you're going to be good. So I had the similar issues. The nausea wasn't as bad as with the first one because, again, I could eat. It was really a good pregnancy, to be honest, but it was just that, one, knowing what I had been through with Amaya, which is the first one, knowing very well I wasn't going to go through that ever again if I could help it, and really being able to like put my foot down and be like, you know what, I'm not leaving here till you get me the cerclage. So again, getting that courage to know that, you know what, these people don't know you from Adam. You can be a bitch if you want to. You can be the angry Black woman, but advocate for your baby and for yourself. And they got that cerclage, and thank God, baby stayed. When I could tell you that baby waited for the cerclage to be taken. Well, my grandmother waited for the cerclage to be taken out to die. Like the day they took my cerclage out, my grandmother died. And again, at this point, I can't even grieve her because, one, there's nothing protecting that baby inside me anymore. At this point, it's like I really have to compartmentalize and like hold all that grief in. And to this day, because again, even when you have the baby, you're barely sleeping, you're breastfeeding, you're up all hours of the night. You don't have time to even grieve. So even till this day, I don't say my grandmother was. I still refer to her in the present tense because I haven't grieved her, and I'm not going to grieve her, which is funny. But to your question, it was more or less the same, but because I had the hindsight of what had happened with Amaya, and knowing that, you know what, as soon as you see those first signs, talk to a doctor, impose your opinions on that doctor. Don't leave there until you're comfortable in your mind and in your body that, you know what, this is the best decision you could have made. So shout out to hindsight.
So that's a good lesson, but again, you shouldn't have had to experience that in the first place. So do you think, I mean, I know that what you probably imagine motherhood to be is probably very different, right? From when you enter it, even for people who have like quote unquote normal pregnancy and childbirth experiences. But how do you think these experiences impacted how you approach motherhood today?
I think it made me more cognizant of how fickle life is. Because, like, even let's speak about, okay, pregnancy in general. When I see a pregnant woman, I realize that I go out of my way sometimes a little bit more than I should to make sure they're okay. Like, if I'm in a setting and maybe the kids are acting up, like, I'll go out of my apologize and just be like, okay, are you okay? Need anything? You want to come sit with us? Like, I'm very motherly to pregnant women, which can be like really weird when you don't know the person. But my friends like who have been pregnant, like Paula, my friend Paula was pregnant. I was like a mother best friend because like I know how easily things can go wrong and how much of a miracle even conceiving is. So it made me a lot more cognizant of the fact that, you know what, that pregnant woman, she might look like she's killing it, but she's going through something as well. If you can offer to even help her carry her bag out the grocery store, anything that you can do it. As far as motherhood is concerned, it made me very overprotective to the point where I feel like I need to relax a little bit because when I tell you the daycare is tired of me, I call every hour. We went on a trip together, Nanga. You saw how much I was calling and going crazy.
I was just about to butt in.
Listen,
and say, I've witnessed that you're on vacation. You not enjoy your vacation. The people who are, I was like, bruh.
I don't even know
like,
how to. Like,
I'm sorry for these people who are thinking she was calling.
They were pissed off. They were pissed off. So I was like, She's like,
No, I'm laughing because this is me. When I leave the house, that's not.
See, I wish. How old is your child, by the way? How old is your daughter, or is it your son?
No, she's 10. She's 10 now.
That's why now.
No. I've never been. Like, her dad is more. The first day she went to daycare, I'm putting his business out there, but when she went to daycare, I sneak suspect he was crying that first day when I was just like, see you later.
Wow, girl.
And then he dropped her off and then went to go check at lunch, and all the teachers at school were laughing at him for like that first week. He would drop in to look at her, and he was like the one, he wanted daycare with cameras, and I was just like, what are you going to do? Okay, she's eating from the... Do you really want to see her eating boogers all day? Like, she's gonna nest. Do you want to sit there, the kid? Like, you don't want to see that. And so I was just like, I've been more like free-range parenting for the most part. But yeah. So I understand because I live with somebody like you where today she would tell you, she's like, he's overprotective. And she would say it to him, like, but yeah, no, girl, y'all be fine.
Yeah, hopefully.
So you kind of already answered this, but I just want to like talk about it as one of our closing out comments. What is something you want other women to hear that you wish you had heard while you were grieving the loss of your first pregnancy and while you were going through the difficult pregnancies that you had following that?
getting emotional right now. I don't know why, but I would want to tell them that it's okay to cry. You know, it's okay to be negative. It's okay to think like the world is coming to an end. Because if you don't go through that little depressive phase, it's gonna hit you later. Like it's okay to. I remember people telling me, "Oh, don't cry. It's gonna be okay," but you don't know it's gonna be okay. You're saying that because you're not in my position. But I think it would be just to tell them like, cry, get that out of your system. Cry, bang on a wall, break glasses, get that energy out. That way, whenever you're done getting it out, all you have space for is the future. All you have space for is, okay, I've dealt with the negativity. I've dealt, like, again, you're not going to deal with it overnight. It's going to take maybe months and years, but cry. Like, let that stuff out. Don't people can call you weak or whatever. They can say, "Oh, you're crying is," I think one person told me, if you cry like this, it's going to affect how your future is going to be with the baby because you're already speaking negatively on it by crying. And I'm crying even harder at this one because now you're basically telling me that I'm making things worse. So it's like, I never felt okay really getting into my depression about what I was going through because it's like, okay, and as much as I know it's really superstitious, it's crazy, but what if I'm really affecting how my future is going to be by crying and being so negative? So I would say cry. What God wants to happen is going to happen. There's no amount of tears, no amount of like negative talking. If you pray to God about that baby and He knows your heart, He knows you're crying because you're really sad, not because you doubt Him. Even though I did kind of doubt Him a little, but that's neither here nor there. But like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad and like think the world is coming to an end because my world was coming to an end. So yeah, yeah.
That's a good point. And then second question, like what is a change that you want to see in our community? And I'm speaking here kind of African immigrants community / Black community. What is a change that you want to see in how we talk about this topic, how, we talk to women, about pregnancy and about pregnancy loss?
I think it would be to be honest. And I get that, like even the comment I made earlier about, not wanting my child to have disabilities and everything, that's a comment that you won't generally make like out there because people have children with disabilities. They might take that a certain type of way. But I think finding your niche of people, which in my situation would be you, Inanga, and Bilola, knowing that these people know your heart and know that they're not going to judge you and being honest and open with them. And once you're doing that, you're creating awareness, even if it's two people. You guys don't know what I went through. You might mention it to one of your friends who might have a friend who's going through it. So just being really honest about what you're feeling so that way when whatever you said resonates with someone else, they now won't feel shy about the fact that my thinking wasn't that bad. Or, oh, maybe I'm not crazy for thinking this way. This person went through it as well. So I'm not. Like, just being able to find that reciprocity by creating awareness. So I would say find your niche, be honest with them, and be open and transparent with them so that they can also relay that message openly and transparently to help other people come out of their shell and get on shows like this and share their experience.
And you said something which I'll repeat at the beginning of the episode. You said that on social media, like you didn't really see Black women talking about, their pregnancy loss. And yeah, when I think about it, like the few kind of, not high profile, but yeah, the few cases I've seen where women are speaking openly, it hasn't been Black women. Maybe I'm just not on the right side of that social media, but I doubt it. I feel like, especially in our community, when we talk about Africans and even the immigrant community here in the US, people are not talking about it. And yeah, nobody owes us, right? Nobody owes us to be sharing their grief publicly. Nobody's obligated to do that, but it shouldn't be out of shame, right? That people are not talking about this thing because they talk about other things, like people survive cancer and they share their experiences, but it's almost like when it comes to this, it's like just kept very to a small circle of people. And I know, yeah, it would definitely help other women.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people would say when something like this happens and then you say it and then people start telling like, oh, I had the same experience. But when you were in the thick of it and going through it, you could feel like you were alone and nobody else has, can imagine what you're going through. But everybody dealt with it and nobody talked about it. And so everybody's dealing with it alone and feeling like it's just them. And I wanted to say also, like, to your point, Josiane, about like crying. I always tell people like pregnancy is hard and you don't even know. It's a gamble, like you don't know what you're going to get at the end of it. But there's this toxic positivity thing like, well, you are blessed with a child at the end. Or if you went through like infertility and you have a child, So like that fourth trimester when you're going through that newborn hazing, you shouldn't complain. Like if you know me and you're listening to it and you don't know me, if you ever want to complain and bitch about pregnancy, I'm your girl. Like it was not a fun experience for me. So if you want to come and tell me how unfun it is, I will listen to you and indulge you. If those first couple of months of motherhood are kicking your ass and you're just side-eyeing that baby because like what's going on here, come and talk to me because your feelings are valid. What you're going through, motherhood is not sunshine and roses. I love some of these social media posts like the first time I laid eyes on you, I fell in love. Have you seen a newborn baby? Do you see
So,
what? Do you know what
I'm not,
babies
my
look?
newborn babies are cute. I'm sorry. I've seen some very wrinkly looking raisins. I'm not gonna lie, but my babies were cute when they came out. I'm just saying.
I used to say that
Period.
babies look like Gary, like just a lump of Gary when they're born. Somebody who I don't want to name told me, it's a little preteen, told me newborns look like a naked mole rat. I didn't know what they look
That
like,
is true.
but I
That is
agree.
true.
That's
That is
true.
true. 'Cause that cakey skin they have, what is it called? That white whatever. And then they're so wrinkly because they've just been in water. It's true. It's true. That is.
So yeah. So let new mothers express themselves however they want to. There's no like not everybody's bonded to their baby. I would say my daughter is 10. I definitely love her more today than I did on that first day.
Mm-hmm.
Or that first month. But it's only like it was not love at first sight just because I was more taken with just like, oh my God, I'm responsible for this person. That was like my
Mm-hmm.
bigger feeling. There was no time to love. At that point, it's just like I have to keep you alive. I have to feed you. Like, you can't do anything. But I could not say a lot of these things, or the fact that when I went back to work, I was like, bye. I was very excited to go back to yes.
I wish. I wish. When I try to fight with myself not to pick up the phone and call, like I'll pinch myself, like don't do it as I'm doing it.
Oh no.
But
I
more
wanted to
greasier
be
elbows.
I wanted to be around adults. I didn't want to feel like a cow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like milk on
That's
demand.
true.
I was
Mm-hmm.
keeping like these strange hours. I just wanted to feel like me again and it's like me, I'm not mother or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And work gave me a few hours of escape every day
Mm,
somewhat.
Oh, wow.
yeah, agree. All right. Well, this has really been a great conversation. Josiane, again, thank you so much for your courage in coming to talk about your experience. I know that it will definitely help somebody who is listening slash watching. All right. So if you have been reading along with us our book of the month for September, which I just finished it, I love that book, My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. And then Bilala has forced us to add another one, Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Adichie, because I mean we're talking about grief. But you said that's a small book, right? Like it's
Yeah,
short.
it's short.
Okay. All right. Well, follow us on YouTube at Two Bees in a Pod and on Instagram at Two Bees Pod. And until next time.
Monkey walk, baboon chop. I love this one. Which means the monkey's doing the work while the baboon is reaping the benefits.
So what's the meaning of that proverb?
Be the baboon, Sha. You have to be the baboon.
Be that-
Because while we be walking and someone else is eating, but that I'm eating now. Be the baboon.
Damn. I thought you were gonna say something like I don't know.
God, my brain is fried. It's about to be bedtime, nap time. I'm not even here anymore.
Loving kindness. So be the baboon. Is that your
Wow.
interpretation too?
I don't even know. I mean, I always use it when I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, like I'm doing something, like how can I be the work
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's getting all the credit. But I think it's also apt for this episode because every time the child comes out looking like the father, I always shout, monkey the walk, baboon the chop, because
That's
how
true.
how
But children really have the audacity to be looking like their fathers,
I feel to me that is the highest form of betrayal.
And
Where
it's
you
always the girls. Always the girls.
um
Always.
anyway, my daughter looks like me, but like and then sometimes it's the guts of like my cousin has two kids. They don't necessarily look alike, but they both look like their father. And it's just like, to me, it's a special kind of betrayal. Like, I did all of this. I looked at my friend and I looked at her son, and all I said was Ashia.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's
I know, that's
heartbreaking.
right. That's literal monkey walk baboon shop. All right. Bye.
Bye.